And some people ask me how I got involved talking about ghosts. It came out of this book here, Historic Houses of Louisville. It's one of my more popular books. It went out of print many years ago. But as I did these interviews with the owners of these historic homes, they told me that they're ghost stories. It's like, well, now what do I do with all that information? I wasn't going to put it in my history book. So that's how Haunted Houses of Louisville came about. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
About 50% of the population thinks something strange is going on out there. What creates a ghost? Trauma experience, murder, accidental death, or their burial location has been disturbed, or they just want to linger around until they go to the other side. How do ghosts appear? Apparitions, cold spots, unexplained noises, orbs, shadows, and electrical malfunctions. Okay. Okay. We're
That's my job.
So now then, most of you probably have been on ghost tours in other cities. They say New Orleans is the most haunted city. I've been on their ghost tours. I don't think so. They stand the hair on the back of my neck. But if you go to Savannah, Savannah I think has the best ghost tours. If you go on those, they will stand the hair on the back of your necks there at Savannah. And how that came about was in the center of the old town Savannah, they had a burial location, a cemetery in the center. And as the city grew, they had to take that land. They got everyone out. Did they get everyone out? But they had developed that block there in Savannah, and on the ghost tours, they walk you around that block, and you can actually tell that something strange, something weird was going on with that block. Here are some of the ghost tours that they do there. Very interesting. If you've ever been to Savannah, you know what I'm talking about. Some great ghost tours. We have the same exact situation that happens here in Louisville. Baxter Square Park at Jefferson and 11th Street. That's the old park there. And it used to be a cemetery as well. It was known as Pioneer Cemetery from 1786 to 1879. A lot of folks were buried at that location. And then Mayor Baxter decided he wanted it as a park. And so he asked everyone to get everyone out of there. Back then, here's where it was located. So do you think they got everyone out?
Yeah.
So we have one confirmation of that. John Keats, the famous English poet, his brother George Keats actually lived here in Louisville. He lived downtown at the Englishman's Palace, down there where the Pendennis Club currently is today. And he had a daughter, Rosalind Keats, who died at a young age. In 1826, she passed away. She was only, what, about 5 years old, if you will. So she was buried in Pioneer Cemetery. And so when Mayor Baxter asked everyone to take their descendants out and relocate them, young Rose did not come along. And so, yes, normally children's grave sites are the hardest to find when they're relocating graves. They deteriorate very fast, and so they could not find a young Rose there. Now then, there's been stories about ghostly children playing on the playground equipment there at Baxter Park. Some of the buildings in the area have literally had mediums or exorcists come in to tell the ghost to quiet down or depart their premises. But yeah, there's been numerous stories in this area of buildings haunted by some of the folks that were left behind here at the old Pioneer Cemetery. Of course, are there ghosts in cemeteries? That's the next big question, right? Well, as noted, I was a Cave Hill tour guide for 17 years, and I always ask the night watchman, have you seen any ghosts? No. They go, why would ghosts be haunting a cemetery? They want to be out haunting you, the living, not so much themselves. So they said they've never seen a ghost in a cemetery. But you do see some strange things going on there in the cemetery. Some of the monuments and all there are kind of haunting in appearance. Now then, Colonel Sanders had a haunting experience there at his gravesite. There he is. He's kind of interesting, visiting your own gravesite, if you will. And there he actually is, there at the gravesite. Now, I always like to tell my favorite story of Cave Hill about Colonel Sanders. He was buried the traditional way. He was not cremated, or else he'd be extra crispy.
Stop it!
I got more where that came from. But one haunting experience that I had once was here at the Harry Collins, the famous magician of Louisville. They say, photographers say that orbs are created by light reflecting off the dust off the lens of cameras. Ghostologists claim that orbs are spirits. And here you actually see some orbs in the Harry Collins photograph here. I've taken hundreds of photographs of Cave Hill. This is the only photograph that ever had orbs appear. So maybe Harry is sending us a message from beyond. Now, Eastern Cemetery has had a history of reburials. And again, do not disturb the dead. That's kind of a bad thing to be happening. And unfortunately, Eastern Cemetery has had a lot of that. Believe it or not, there are the same number of grave sites in Cave Hill as there are in Eastern Cemetery. Here they say there's about 30,000 in Eastern. Cave Hill says they have about 35,000 as well. But Cave Hill is 10 times the size of Eastern. Eastern is 30 acres and Cave Hill is about 300 acres. And so how did they get all of those bodies into Eastern? Yeah, not very good. So Eastern Cemetery also might have had some grave robbing going on as well. We did have a history of that here locally. What Louisville institution has a history of grave robbing? University of Louisville, that is correct. James Guthrie, to entice the medical staff from Transylvania University, said, "Come to Louisville, we have more bodies here to experiment on." So that's how we did that. Now then, there are burials on the campus of U of L. Who are they? There's 2 bodies buried on campus. Louisville. Yes, Louis Brandeis, Supreme Court Justice, and his wife Alice. They were both cremated and buried just here, just outside the entrance to the law school. Now then, we named our parks after the Native Americans that were here before us. Oh, okay. Where should I stand? Oh, okay. I can sit. I understand. I'm blocking some folks' view, so I'll just sit down here. If that's okay. This is better. Okay. Sorry about that. So, anyways, where are the Native Americans buried here in Louisville, since they were here before us? So, normally Indians were buried in burial mounds such as these. So where are these Indian burial mounds in Louisville? So the most major Indian mound was in downtown Louisville, just right there where that red star is, down there near Muhammad Ali and 6th Street. There was a large burial mound. And there was a lake just north of that. And back in the 1830s, they were having a lot of childhood diseases, malaria, yellow fever, that were killing the children. So the residents of Louisville said, let's get rid of all the standing water in the area. So how did they get rid of that lake just north of the Indian mound? They took all the contents of that mound and pushed them into the lake and covered up the lake. Bodies and all. There are actual descriptive accounts of how that happened. So what's there now? We have a surface parking lot where the, we have a visitor over here. She'll be back later. But there's a state office building down there, and I've heard some strange things do happen there at the state office building where the lake was, where they buried all the Native Americans.
Do they see Native Americans?
No, they have strange things happening. I've heard of a stapler flying off a desk there, And the night guards have seen strange things. So I've heard from various staff that have worked at that building saying, yes, weird things. Not just the people there, but other things happen. That's just a
I'm
joke.
sorry, I didn't hear, where was the water that they did that? I
It
didn't
was
see
a lake just north of the Indian Mound, where that blue oval is right there.
What
That
street,
was-
what streets would that be?
That would be near Muhammad Ali and 6th Street. And again,
Their armory.
no, the state office building, I think it's a human resources building, I want to say. Now then, Denver is said to be very haunted as well, the Denver airport. Some of you may remember when they opened up Denver airport, the baggage claim system had all sorts of malfunctions associated with it. But Denver airport is like 50 square miles, if I have that correct. And they disturbed a number of Native American burial sites doing this. And there's actually websites out there talking about all the hauntings that happen here at the Denver airport. We have a similar situation here in Louisville. The Muhammad Ali International Airport, there was a major Native American village at that location. And here the archaeologists back in the 1970s were doing a dig looking for Indian artifacts there. You can see the control tower in the distance there at the airport. Now then, here's an aerial view of the airport. See all the runways, you see the UPS airplanes down here. If you look closely, you see a green circle right there. What could that be? So that is a Native American ceremonial area. It might have bodies there. We're not quite sure what all that is, but we made sure it was not disturbed when they were building the UPS Worldport a few years ago. So yeah, as these airplanes are taxiing around, they're going around a Native American location. But again, this was a village for Native Americans. So getting back to Cave Hill, so I used to do tram tours. Some of you may have been on those. We had a hay wagon and we went around, and when we got to Harry Collins statue, I would tell some ghost stories. And I would ask everyone who has a ghost story. After I told some of my ghost stories, I asked the folks on the tour, do you have a ghost story? And there was this one couple on the tram, and the wife kept elbowing her husband saying, you got to tell the story, you got to tell it. Finally, we on the tour said, hey, yes, please tell the story. So they owned a farm in southern Indiana, and they had a very haunting experience. They had dogs, and they would put the dogs in the cages at night, and for whatever reason, the dogs got out of the cages and roamed around the house, the farmhouse. The children saw apparitions walking through the house. They had electrical malfunctions. All the typical ghostly haunting things were happening here at their farmhouse. So they called in a medium to go out and find out what's going on their farm. They were building a tennis court at the time, and the medium came back into the farmhouse and you got to go out and talk to the chieftain. You're disturbing his people. So the farmer, he went out, told them he was meaning them no harm, he was building a tennis court, that's what we're doing. And after that, all these haunting experiences ended at the farmhouse. And that's, again, what these people on the tram, take it with a grain of salt if you will, but that's what they said happened. So there's the chieftain there. But yeah, you never know when Native Americans are buried here in the Louisville area. I know a lot of them were buried along the waterfront, but elsewhere. So if you have a haunting at your home, could be you were built on a Native American burial site. We do have a Native American mound still existing there in the Sutherland neighborhood off of US 42 out near Prospect. Now then, how do you get rid of ghosts?
Ghostbusters.
There you go.
Why would you want to?
You know there's that.
I was downtown one time and saw the Ghostbuster mobile and thought that was interesting. They were in town doing something. Of course, Bill Murray was a star of that show, but he also was in Stripes, and they did various filming around Louisville locations. One of them was here at the Silbach Hotel. And the Silbach has Louisville's most famous ghost, the Lady in Blue. So who is the lady in blue? Her name was Patricia Wilson. And I guess it would have been July 14th, 1936, since this article was written on July 15th. But her body was found in the base of an elevator shaft there at the Silbach. We do not know how she ended up there at that location, whether it was a murder or a suicide or some other incident, but no one was ever prosecuted for her death. But she's been seen at the Silbach ever since. Numerous people have seen the lady in blue floating about. The Silbach even put up a portrait of a lady in blue. It's kind of green looking there, but the actual photograph is blue. When you go down mezzanine level next to the elevators, you'll see they're kind of trolling us with this photograph. And I know a former concierge there at the Silbach who had numerous stories of people seeing the lady in blue floating about the Silbach. Now again, I'm not...
Middle-aged men.
Yeah, and she said a lot of these were middle-aged men coming down the dead at night, saying the lady in blue was up in their room, and I just assumed that they were making up a story about why a lady in blue was up there.
I'm thinking some Woodford Bourbon was involved with that.
Yes, Bourbon was definitely involved. Hold that thought, we'll come back to that. So now then, just down the street here is my church, St. Francis of Rome. It's a Catholic church. And I was writing the history of it a number of years ago. And I actually used a ghostwriter on the book. That's a little pun there. Charles Beckman, he passed away in the early 1960s, but before he did a lot of oral histories of some of the early parishioners of St. Francis of Rome. So I used a lot of his notes in my book, and I gave him a ghostwriter credit there, even though he had been long passed away. So now then, for the book, we took various photographs to include in the book, and one was a photograph of this, of the church at Christmas Midnight Mass. And if you look very closely, you'll notice we could not use this photograph in the book because there had some issues with it. There were a lot of orbs floating about when we took that photo. And again, why would not orbs or spirits be at midnight Christmas Mass? And we had Father Jerry Eifler. He had orbs floating about him as well. So now then, some of you may know that at St. Francis of Rome School, they had the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth that were there. And one of them, Sister Frances, boarded a Piedmont airliner one August morning in 1968. And it took off from Louisville and flew to Charleston, West Virginia. And if you've ever flown into Charleston, you know the airport's up on a mountainside. And it was fogged in that day, and back, 65 or how many years, 57 years ago, they did not have the navigational technology that we have today. And unfortunately, the pilots misjudged the runway, and they flew the Piedmont airliner directly into the side of the mountain, killing all aboard, including Sister Frances. August 10th, 1968. This is her gravesite out at Nazareth near Bardstown. And many parishioners have said that they have seen her pushing a broom around the old school ever since. A number of parishioners, just like you here in the audience, credible folks, said, yes, we've seen her. I've been there many years, I've not seen her, but one day maybe. But anyway, Sister Frances. She was only like 28 or 30 years old. And we've had some burials in downtown Louisville. The Prather family once owned where 4th Street Live is today, and they had their family cemetery on that location. Thomas Prather, who's now relocated out to Cage Hill Cemetery, he was buried at this location. If you go down at 4th Street Live around 2 a.m. in the morning, you might see some strange figures walking And some trivia, Broadway was once named Prather Street. So the Prathers were a noted historical family of Louisville back in the early 1800s. Some other burials in downtown. Below in the crypts of the cathedral, Bishop Flagey is buried there with one other bishop or so. To my knowledge, the cathedral is not haunted. I've not heard of anything there. One interesting thing you always got to watch out for, and this was evident on my New Orleans tours, whenever the ghost tours go into all these souvenir shops and taverns and try to sell you things, your antenna need to go up and see whether or not those are actual ghosts. For instance, the Palace Theater, in fact, the Courier just had an article saying there's 3 ghosts at the Palace. Well, I've talked to the staff there, we'll see whether or not that actually is. But the Belle of Louisville, they say there's a ghost on that. I've been there and the staff has not quite seen it, but ghost hunters say it's there. But anyways, whenever you go to a visitor attraction and they say you have a ghost, well, take that again with a grain of salt. At the Brown Hotel, they say James Graham Brown haunts the hallways there. He actually lived at the Brown Hotel. Of course, if the Silbach has a ghost, the Browns got a ghost. And J. Graham Brown did some great things for the city. The zoo, Cancer Center, and the Derby Museum he helped fund. Now then, the Brennan House. Brennan House down there at 5th and Chestnut. Thomas and Anna Brennan, who you see here, they had 7 children, but their children had no children, which means there were no descendants to auction off all of their worldly possessions after the last one died, which was Dr. Brennan here. He had his medical office there off to the side. He passed away in the early 1960s. So again, all of these Brennans, there they are laid out at Cave Hill Cemetery. So they say on a moonlit night, you can see shadows in the upper windows there of the Brennans coming back to view all their worldly possessions. I'll let y'all again decide if that's the case or not, but it is a time capsule of Louisville. All of their Victorian items from the 1800s, early 1900s are still there. Now then, getting out from downtown, the Dr. Luther Blankenbaker House there on Waterson Trail near downtown Jeffersonville, they say there's a ghost sitting there on the front that looks out, wearing a dark black dress. Not quite sure who she might be, but some people swear she's there. Now this is an interesting tale. It's a Joseph Abel house again, this is in Middletown, and it's out Old Shelbyville Road. Folklore says that Joseph Abel's ghost protects the buried treasure that he put on his property there. Now, I don't want everyone running out there tonight with a metal detector, but many people have been out there looking for this buried treasure and nothing has since shown up. But anyways, that's a folklore tale out in Middletown. Now then, every bed and breakfast or Airbnb has a ghost. You look on every one of these websites, they talk about their ghostly hauntings there. This is a good example of the Samuel Bray house out there off Bashford Manor Lane. You name it, they've had all sorts of ghostly experiences here. Some of them involved the Civil War ghost. The Union Army actually bivouacked there on the grounds of Bashford Manor House there. And a number of folks have seen the Union troops moseying about there. Now here is one that a friend told me about. This former owner of this house on Northwestern Parkway said a lot of strange things started happening when he started renovating the house. Here are some of the things that happened. The grandfather clock would continually start and stop. His father-in-law, who was an engineer, had all of his luggage opened and all the contents spread about one of the bedrooms there. The father-in-law claims he had nothing to do with it. He just came into the room and it was all thrown about. And then the next door neighbors would see a woman peering out of the window of the house. And the strange thing stopped when the renovation stopped. And they attribute a lot of these to the previous owner, Marion McCalkin, who was a Spencer and who died in that house. But the person that formerly owned this house swears there definitely was a ghost or strange things happening within it. This may be the most haunted house in the Louisville area, the Culberson Mansion. Has anyone been to the Culberson? if you haven't, you need to go. It's a beautiful historic home. It's open for public tours in the New Albany area. But the mansion staff has viewed many strange things, occurrences, you name it, it's happened there. They smell cigarettes, or not cigarettes, but cigar smoke, electrical problems, as noted, orbs, everything, strange sounds. And by the way, I gave this talk last year, and the director of the Culberson, unbeknownst to me, was actually in the audience that day and got up and said she had seen strange things there at the Culberson. So definitely has some haunting things. Here are some interior photographs of it. Beautiful in the interior. Yeah, it's definitely worth going to see. Here's some haunting photographs. And their carriage house is actually used as a haunted house. They're running it this week and all. Money raised from their haunted house goes to help fund the mansion operations there. But, yeah. Ah, the Peterson Dumesnil House, the lady in white.
Oh, no.
There she is. There she goes. And we're going to have a 10-minute intermission. So we have 10 minutes, you can go out and get some desserts and things. Okay, everyone, we're good going again. Okay, we're good going. The lady in white. There she goes. So now then, the next ghost tale happens back out in Jeffersontown, at the Conrad Seton House. And the occupants of this building have numerous experiences of hauntings at this location. So here is a description that one of the tenants sent me, talking about her haunting experiences at the Conrad Seton House. Talking about shadowy figurines that they see there, a man walking a dog that they see. They also have a lady in white at the nearby cemetery across the street there. One person had some books fly off of a shelf unexpectedly, so they've had a number of these. The Southern Indiana Ghost Hunting Team has been out there, has documented several things happening there. This one person who sent me this story said they were there working late one night during a rainstorm, heard thumps up in the upstairs room, and it became so disturbing that the person left real fast out of the house. And there were some children there one day. They had one of these magic 8 balls that you can ask various questions to, and it would, you know, one of those type of mysterious things that would, you ask it a question, it would answer. So they asked it who was the ghost at that location, and the name Daniel came up, and Daniel Conrad was related to the people that owned the house here. So was that coincidence? Not certain, but it was strange that the name came up that was associated there at the house. Now then, we might have a ghost here at this location, the Tales of the Lady in the White. So here's the story that we have. It is said that children of the neighborhood sometimes wander on the property here, and the lady in white will come out and take them by the hand, lead them up on the porch, and say their mother will be here shortly. And soon, sure enough, the mother would show up, get the child, and take her home. On one account, as the mother was taking the child away, the lights in the house were on, and she looked back, and all the lights in the house went off at that time. So that's one of the stories that we have. So who is the lady in white, and why would she be haunting here? I've been coming to the PD house here for about 45 years, many decades, and I had never heard of any tragedy associated here that would cause a ghost to exist at this location. So as a historian, I said, well, let's do some research and find out who the lady in white actually might be. So let's go to the cemetery. And so this is the Peterson family plot there at Cave Hill Cemetery. And we see Joseph Peterson's headstone there. And Caroline, his wife, her headstone is weathered off a bit, and you can hardly read it. Could she be the lady in white? Joseph and Caroline had 2 granddaughters, Eliza Dumesnil and Carrie Rowland. Eliza and Carrie's father was Jacob Lindenberger, so they were actually known as Eliza Lindenberger and Carrie Lindenberger. You can see the L as their middle name there. That was the grandchildren of Joseph and Caroline Peterson. But who was their mother? I always knew who their grandparents were, and we knew who their granddaughters were, but who was in between there? Who was the mother of these 2 folks? So let's go back to Cave Hill Cemetery at the Peterson plot. There's Joseph and Caroline Peterson there. And Jacob Lindenberger is over there, and he was the father of Eliza and Carrie. And their mother was Carrie Peterson Lindenberger. She was the mother of Eliza and Carrie, and she's buried there in the back section of the Peterson plot. There's her headstone there. Carrie Peterson Lindenberger was the mother of Eliza and Carrie. And again, the lady in white watches over children of the neighborhood. So let's look more into the Lindenbergers to find out more about Carrie Peterson Lindenberger. On the Cave Hill website, if you aren't familiar with it, they have a little search engine at the bottom. And I always tell people to put in the last name, not the first name. Because the first name, they may have gone by their middle name or a nickname or whatever. It's easy to go by the last name, pull up all the names, and then you can scroll down to find the one that you're looking for. So that's what I did with the Lindenbergers, and there's a list of them there. And you see at the very top is Carrie Lindenberger. She passed away on October 1st, 1866. That is what, 156 years ago? 159 years ago? Someone do the math and tell me what it is. But anyways, she passed away in early October of 1866. So I decided to look, were there any other Lindenbergers that died about that same period? I already had my antenna up, and I knew kind of what I was looking for. But I noticed that there was a Jacob Lindenberger who passed away on August 24th, 1866, just a few weeks prior to the mother passing away. So I said, well, that's interesting. And I started looking again. There's Jacob at the top. There was another Lindenberger on the same date, Richard Lindenberger. And there's one more, Thomas Lindenberger. So there were 3 Lindenbergers there, who all were buried on the same date there at the Peterson family plot. So so I called Cave Hill Cemetery up and I asked how old were these Lindenbergers, and agreed they were young infants. So Carrie Peterson Lindenberger had Carrie died 5 weeks later from complications.
This is a hot mess.
And so my estimation and my story is that Carrie Peterson Lindenberger is the lady in white. Now then, this is one aspect of it. Let's look a little bit more. There's been a number of ghostly goings on here at the PD house over the years. For instance, the April 3rd, 1974 tornado missed this historic house by 1 block. Just went to the east here of it. A lightning strike came in recently and knocked out the electrical, but did not start a fire, as might have done. An electrician working on the upstairs ceiling fan was spooked by a noise in the house. Well, no one was here. A recent visitor at the July 4th festival that we have here claimed to see the lady in white on the staircase here. And at the Louisville Historical League board meeting, we were meeting one night here a few years ago, pitch black, it was like 8 p.m. at night. All of us saw a white flash fly through the house. We're not certain what caused that. We all got up, we all saw the same thing. We looked around, it wasn't headlights or anything of that nature out on someone driving by. But there was definitely a distinctive white flash that went through the living room into this family room here. Now then, just adjacent to us here is Galt Avenue, and some of the residents there have experienced ghostly hauntings as well. You can see some of the stories here. They also had an electrical person working on a renovation who experienced something, heard something. Another house residents, presence here, but a number of people on Galt Avenue have had ghostly experiences adjacent here to the PD house. Here's some hauntings here. So there's the lady in white. Now then, one last story, and we got a special person that's going to come in and talk in just a second about this. But Frankfurt Avenue has had a lot of mansions up and down the street here, and all of these fine mansions are gone except for the Peterson Dumesnil House. One reason or another, either by fire, a tornado, or demolition. But these fine mansions no longer exist except for the Peterson Dumesnil House. And we feel the lady in white watches over the PD house so it does not get demolished. And you can see the lady in white here most often weekends, believe it or not, if you come by. So now then, we want to bring in someone here who I just learned has had some ghostly experiences here. Is he available? Where's he at? There's, I just learned of this, so this is an added bonus.
Hello, everybody. My name is Don White, and I've been working here for 7 years for Clementine Catering. And so when I first started working here, it was like, oh, this place is haunted. And I'm like, yeah, all right. I don't believe in haunted houses, you know. So as I've worked here, I've had several experiences. Like one experience was we were in the kitchen talking, and just a plastic top just flew off at the shelf at us. You know, there was no wind or anything in that room. It was so, you know, it's like, this is not real. Been up in the attic, we had to clean out the whole attic. It was all these old Christmas decorations and windows and doors, and so we got the whole attic finished, and we found a book. It was called The Shining, and a picture of a guy and his son around the Christmas tree. So we was like, this is weird. Maybe he belongs to somebody that doesn't fit with all the other things we've thrown out. So let's sit it on this shelf. So it's on the shelf. We come back the next day to finish cleaning, and the book is on the floor. You know, we're like, wow, she didn't like that book. And you know, we do a lot of cleaning every night, and there's always like these dead flies. Like in the morning, there's always these dead flies, and at night, it's like there are all these live flies. They're always in this one room up here. Or we'll see shadows going past the windows, and just, I definitely believe that there's the lady in white, and she roams this whole place, but I also think there's a different entity in the attic, you know, and I think there's several spirits that live in the basement too. Seriously, I mean,
What do they do?
they steal our cleaning supplies.
Anyone that wants a tour of the basement afterwards?
Thank you all. But it's real.
So those are all new stories to add to our collection, but definitely something interesting is going on here at the Peterson Dumesnil House. So there's the lady in white. Now then, they say Wrigley Hills is the most haunted place in the country. I've done the ghost tours there, and I don't know if y'all have done it, but I don't really experience anything there. They say there's ghosts. Of course, it was a tuberculosis sanitarium, and a lot of folks passed away there. It's way out Dixie Highway, right near Bobby Nichols' golf course there, 4400 Paralee Drive. Now then, the Nunlea Historic Home, out off Firstburn Parkway, near Taylorsville Road, they have a number of hauntings that happened there at that house. They actually brought in a ghost hunter to look into this, and it was mentioned in this book by Terry Grimes, Haunted Kentucky. They have a story here talking about the ghosts that would come in and do various things there at Nunlea. And behind Nunlea is the old slave quarters. And now it houses the police department for that area. And even the police hate staying there. There's a lot of hauntings going on. They actually have had experiences there. So if you can't trust the police, you know, what can you do? But regardless, they have stories talking about hauntings there in the slave quarters. And this ghost hunter actually uses various electronic gadgets to detect interesting phenomena there in haunted houses. And here on the lower left is supposedly the ghost of Nunlea that they were able to take a photograph of. And this ghost was going through one of the purses that one of the ghost hunters had brought along. You can actually see the hands there going through the possessions. Now, no, I know, yes, we'll see how that goes. But anyways, that's all documented in this book, Haunted Kentucky. Now then, we actually have an honest-to-goodness ghost hunter here in town, Keith Age. I've not met Keith, some of you may have, but he's our ghost hunter here in Louisville. He has a website out there, Louisville Ghost Hunters Society. And in New York City, they have a ghost hunter as well. He's outside that fire station that was in Ghostbusters. Now then, of course, the movie Exorcist everyone's familiar with. And I know of a Catholic priest, personally, who told me this story. There was a senior living facility. It was not here in the Louisville area. It was out in Kentucky. The senior living facility contacted him and said that the residents there would not use one of the rooms in the senior living facilities. The residents said there was something strange going on in that room. All sorts of things were moving about. All the ghostly stuff was happening in this one room. So they called this priest in to do an exorcism of that room. And I asked him, how you go about doing that? There was actually a prayer that they say. They sprinkle about holy water and various other things. Now this has happened a few weeks ago, and I've asked him again, has anything improved? And he has not yet heard back from the senior facility, so he's assuming everything quieted down and it all worked out for the best. But yeah, there are exorcisms that still go on, not only here but elsewhere. And we have a lot of books in the Louisville area, every type of ghost that you want to talk about here in the Louisville area. Of course, David Dominy has written a number of those, but we have a lot of interesting books that you can get. Here are a few more. And at the end of this presentation, everyone gets a free copy of my book, which is right there. And if you're out on the porch, and as you go out, just grab a copy, and you're welcome to take one. And of course, there are ghost tours here in Louisville. I've been on some of these. Some are interesting, some aren't. And up to you, but various ghost tours that they do here locally. The zombie walk. I think they just had something like this down in the Nulu area recently. And of course, Boo at the Zoo. Hopefully everyone has taken their grandkids to this. I took them out here a few weeks ago. It's always a fun experience. And Drew Redfield, the WDRB, he always does this haunting weather forecast of Halloween morning. He'll be doing this again. And how he does this, he has a green outfit on, and then he stands in front of the weather thing there. But I always get a laugh out of this. I saw this magazine recently called Haunted Houses and Scary Mysteries. They talk about haunted houses throughout the United States. Unfortunately, there's not one of ours mentioned. There's no Silbach, no Waverly Hills, so I don't trust this thing. Boo, they don't talk about all hauntings. They do list the number of scary movies that are out there. Some of you all are familiar with. My favorite, which I don't think is listed here, is Sleepy Hollow. And it is going to be broadcast for those of you who have cable. It's on the FX cable channel this Friday, I think at 10 a.m. in the morning, which is kind of a crazy time. But Sleepy Hollow is a great Halloween movie if you've not seen it. Now that we were talking about bourbon and all that, yes, we do have a haunted distillery even downtown, Buzzard's Roost. They claim they have all sorts. Again, take this with a grain of bourbon or salt or whatever you want to say, you know. But they claim they. Yes.
My husband owns Buzzard Roost.
Okay, so we have a testimonial here.
Yeah. But he was just here a few minutes ago, and he said that his manager has pictures of orbs that were in his office this weekend.
So I highly recommend everyone going down to Buzzard Roost and checking out the ghosts. But I think this is the only distillery that has ghosts, to my knowledge,
Yeah,
right?
they have a paranormal person that's doing tours
Oh,
right
wow.
now.
Oh, there we go. Yes, in the back.
So I work at Evan Williams
Okay.
on 6th and Main, and Harry Shapira had his office on the 5th floor, and we have a lot of us experienced.
Oh, okay, so you have a ghost there at Evan Williams too. So you have competition. Okay, so while most may not have seen a ghost, I think most everyone has had what I call paranormal experiences. And paranormal is something happens that you can't quite explain how it happened. And so I've had several of these type of experiences. And recently I had one out in Yellowstone National Park.
Can I just throw this out there for fun?
Well, can you do it at the end?
No, I'm gonna do it now.
Okay, okay.
I have a cemetery in my backyard.
Right. And we will get to individual stories here in just a second. I'm sorry. But let's get through the paranormal. And so I was out in Yellowstone, so what does that have to do with Louisville, Kentucky? So I was in Yellowstone doing hiking, and we went to various gift shops looking for a particular souvenir that I was interested in. And we went to all these gift shops, could not find it at all, so I decided to make one last final stop at the Old Faithful gift shop there, at the general store, and there it is right there. And so I did find the souvenir that I wanted there. And they had a chatty cashier that was talking up to every one of the people there buying things. And if you've ever been with a chatty cashier, it could take a long time. There's a very long line. They didn't want to wait. So they had a self-checkout line. And I took my souvenir up there, and the barcode would not work on that. And I said, oh my gosh. So I had to get in line and wait about 10, 15 minutes for the chatty cashier. So now then, when I finally got up to the chatty cashier, she goes, where are you from? I go, Louisville, Kentucky. She looked at me in amazement and said, my son just painted a mural in Louisville of a murdered rock singer in Louisville, Kentucky. She now had my full attention since I was giving a talk the next week on notorious crimes of Louisville. So this was a notorious crime, a murdered rock singer connected to Louisville and from Yellowstone. What are the odds of this? So she muttered who the person was. I didn't quite get it. So she flipped out her cell phone and showed me cell phone images of the murdered rock singer. Her name was Mia Zappa. Some of you may have heard of her. And the mural that her son, he was from Philadelphia. He actually came to Louisville to do this mural for Mia Zappa. So she was showing this, and I was like, oh my gosh, who is this? So I quickly, upon returning to Louisville, there's my PR for my Notorious Crimes talk. I Googled Mia Zappa and all that, and decided to include her within my talk. So all these strange events happened talking about this murdered rock singer. So is that a paranormal experience about how all that happened? Now here's a little bit more about Mia Zappa, who she was. She was not actually born here. She was born in Chicago, but she went to Presentation Academy, and she's buried in Cave Hill Cemetery. And her mother, I understand, still lives here in Louisville. And when I was giving my talk, several people in the audience knew of her. I had no idea. Does anyone know who she was? So anyways, here's the mural that was painted, and then that's her gravesite at Cave Hill Cemetery. Well, she actually passed away, and she was murdered, I think, in 1996. Yeah, murdered in 1996 in Seattle. No, 1993. 1993, she was murdered in Seattle. She was one of the first cases ever solved by DNA evidences. Her case was very important. They did not catch the guy until 2003 via DNA, is how they caught this guy. And he's currently serving a jail sentence for her. Now then, one other paranormal that I had, Sam Thomas, some of you may know who he was. He wrote a lot of great history books of Louisville. And so when Sam passed away, I was over in Italy, in Rome, Italy, and I could not get back for the memorial service. So when I did, I called up his widow, Debbie Thomas, who's in the upper left-hand corner there. And I explained to Debbie, sorry I missed the memorial service. And at the end of that conversation, I said, has Sam written any books that he has yet to get published? And she said yes. One was ready to go to the printer, but she had no money to pay for it. So I told her I would think about that dilemma. Literally a few days later, I get a call from a wealthy Louisvillian who called to talk to me on some history topics. At the end of the conversation, he goes, hey, I've hired a researcher. We're going to do a book on the origins of Olmsted Park. I said, no, time out. Sam's already written that book. It's ready to go to publication, but Debbie does not have the money to fund it. I put them two together, and the book was written. The Origins of Louisville's Olmsted Parks and Parkways. It was published posthumously 2013, and I got to write the book review in the Courier Journal. So was Sam up there pulling some strings to get his last book printed? That I don't know, but it's just a strange series of events that happened to get this book published. So all of these ghosts that we have here, I say, are friendly ghosts. I'm not any scary ghosts that I'm aware of, but you may tell me different. Okay, here we go. Has anyone seen a ghost? Now then, if you would like to talk. Yes, we have a lady here who has a cemetery in her backyard, and she would like to talk about her experiences.
Yes, I have a cemetery in my backyard.
Stand up.
Yeah, if you would like to stand up.
Oh, okay. And, yeah. I was born and raised in Crescent Hill. And the cemetery in our backyard is, it's very, it's really a strange thing. And our family, there is another house in the neighborhood that was a huge Civil War
Plantation house in terms of.
plantation house. And yes, and so in our backyard we have a cemetery. It's at 154 North Westmore. And
Mary Sales who lived in that house.
What's the address?
154 Crestmore.
154 North Crestmore.
Oh, I lived at 153 South Crestmore. So.
On the other side of the tracks.
Yes, I know, but she didn't say north.
And so we have this huge cemetery that's been in our backyard forever and ever and ever. And
Some community development doing some research for us as well.
yeah.
Wow.
It's really
But you
good.
have all sorts of experiences, a lot of electrical malfunctions, orbs, strange apparitions. Have you seen any apparitions?
No, we've not had too much in the way of apparitions or orbs or anything, but when I go and I sit in the backyard, because this is my childhood area, and when I go there and I sit there, it's just time, it feels wonderful. It's very, 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 very comforting. And I don't know, it's a really kind feeling.
Well, at least you know that the cemetery's in your backyard and not under the house. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that would be a bit much if it was under the house. No, it is, and I would love anybody to come and,
But you say U of L's researching it, you have some folks that are.
oh yeah, they have, everybody researches it, and you don't really get too much, I mean, it is what it is. And, yeah, Mary Sale is there in the cemetery, and then there's a couple of other graves, and then way up on the, it's between the Randolph and Blackburn Avenue is the, it's a Civil War cemetery hospital, which is now a condo.
Huh.
Yeah, on
So they
Randolph.
tore down the old Civil War thing and put.
No, nobody tore anything down, it's just all.
But the condo is still there.
On Randolph.
On Randolph, yes, yeah, you know it, yeah,
Yeah, I live on the Fairlawn, between Randolph and
You all live in
Fairlawn.
Reservoir Park.
There's a
there,
huge,
correct?
there's a huge infirmary, there was a Civil War
Okay.
hospital there, and it's now condominium.
there you go.
Yeah.
But we have, in our backyard, it's the cemetery. And it is so, and you know what, it is so comforting. I go out that backyard, and it is so
That's good. Anyone else? Yes, over here. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Has anyone ever heard of the Blue Lady at Story, Indiana?
Yes,
Anybody?
I've stayed in that. Yes.
Have you? Did you experience anything as
No.
I have?
No, but
Okay.
I read it, we stayed there.
No.
We've stayed there several
All
times.
right, well, I mean, I did not have a sighting, but I think this was definitely a paranormal experience. We had rented both the cottage, this was years ago, the cottage and also a room at the inn, but everyone was afraid to stay at the inn because they'd heard the stories. So we all stayed in the cottage. Well, the first night we were in the cottage, I kept hearing the door open and close and footsteps. And my mother's a smoker, so I thought she went out to smoke. You know, that's what happened. The next morning, I was like, God, can you please, no, you know, just, you woke me up, I don't know how many times. I never left the house, she said. Never left the house. So the next night, I was on edge, of course, and we had more guests show up. So someone had to go to the Blue Lady room over in the inn. And of course, as fate would have it, pouring down rain, thunder, lightning, and the worst infestation of ladybugs. Anybody ever seen a ladybug infestation in Indiana? They're horrible. They're horrible at times. Everything was infested with ladybugs, so nobody wanted to go over there. I went over there in the middle of the pouring rain, and of course I couldn't sleep. Ladybugs flying around. I got the little book out and started reading about all of the Blue Lady sightings. Well, I also knew there was a garden, a door that led to a garden. I tried to go out to the garden. I tried to open the door to see what the weather was doing. I tried. I unlocked it. It wouldn't come. It was jammed. The next morning, we were all having breakfast downstairs, and they have served a wonderful meal there too. And one of the girls was curious about all the stories of the Blue Lady. So we went up to the room, and I was reading from the pages of the sign-in book, the guest sign-in book. And just as I was getting to the part where someone had sighted the Blue Lady, the door flies open. It wouldn't open the night before, no matter how hard I tried. Flies open, and she ran screaming downstairs. Of course, I wasn't affected by it because I really felt like it was not a dangerous situation or anything like that. But I do think that those were very strong feelings, and there have been many, many sightings. So if you want to go somewhere where
But
you're
that
almost
book-
guaranteed.
But that book had people who had seen, and that
Absolutely.
book, people page after page.
Wine
and seen her.
glasses being poured
Yes.
in the middle of the night.
Yes.
People seeing her, wine glasses
Yes.
being drunk in the middle of the night.
Yes.
I mean, all
I
kinds
was
of
shocked when I
yes.
read through the people who say that.
Okay.
Highly recommend you check that out, Steve.
Well, we're about ready to wrap up here, and where do you go to see dead people tonight?
Well, guys, I'm just saying. Guys, I'm just saying, if anybody wants to come down to 154 North Crestmore and sit there with the ghost in the backyard, it's fine.
Thank you. And so Hillcrest is alive right now. You go down there, there's quite lining up currently. You can also go by and look at my house. This is my house. We put a pumpkin on the front of that. And slow down and paraphrase the Cowardly Lion. Now, do you believe in ghosts? Good deal. Thanks for attending. And be sure to pick up a copy of the book on your way out.
Thanks, Steve, for doing that. We also have a little donation coupon here, so if you'd like to see, drop a few bucks in the coupon.